Welcome to the Sheffield Sunday As Bill Sees It meeting. This is a main share meeting, and today it's with great pleasure and much gratitude that we welcome DC from San Diego, who's come to share for about 40 minutes, after which we will open up for general sharing or if you'd like to ask a question. Thank you, DC. It's wonderful to have you here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Sammy. My name is DC. I'm an alcoholic. I'm grateful I'm an alcoholic is what I'll start with. That's the absolute truth. And I'm delighted to be here. You guys, I'm in California. I'm in San Francisco, California right now. And looking out this window that's behind me, like the moon is still hanging in the sky. And it's absolutely beautiful behind me. Like the city lights are twinkling, and I don't know. I'm grateful. Young, thank you so much for the opportunity to come in and spend some time with you guys today. And thanks for your service and for all you do in this room and in all the other rooms. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So, it's funny trying to choose one reading from As Bill Sees It, right? Is hard, you guys. There's so much good stuff in there. And the thing is, I had this narrowed down to 3 different readings, and finally I got it narrowed down to 2. And the one that I chose today, I just kept getting drawn back to it. And I kind of hemmed and hawed because I had some circumstantial things going on, right? Because that's what happens. Like, just because we get sober doesn't mean that things don't happen in life, right? It doesn't mean that we don't face adversity. Things still come up. But we have the ability to meet any situation, right? I love that part in the big book that says, if you persist, all sorts of remarkable things will happen, and you will be able to face whatever happens, no matter your present circumstances. And so I kind of was like, I don't want to pick a reading based on my circumstances, but I kept getting drawn back to this one, this concept around faith. And the way that I live my life these days is that if my higher power that I choose to call God, if God keeps putting the same concept, the same song lyric, the same word, whatever it is, if it's showing up in my life on repeat, if I keep getting redirected to a certain concept, a certain reading, a certain word, whatever it is, I know that God is telling me, like, you need to be paying attention to this right here, right? And what a beautiful thing that is, that I can recognize that today. I can recognize when there is divine guidance in my life. That doesn't always mean that doesn't mean that I always receive it, right? That doesn't mean that I don't resist it. I'm still an alcoholic. I still have some defiance. That I know to be true. But I'm open and I'm aware, and I'm eventually willing to take a look at that stuff. And so this concept of faith, gosh, you guys, I've been sober. It's been a little over. I'm at that funny part where it's like more than 3.5 years, but it's not close enough to be 4, right? So it's like, am I 3.5 years? Am I almost 4? I don't know. It doesn't matter. I'm 3.5 years sober. My sobriety date is March 31st of 2021. This isn't my first life in recovery. I have a sponsor who has a sponsor, but here's the thing. I have sponsees, which is fantastic. But they have sponsees, which is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal, right? One alcoholic carrying the message to another alcoholic so they can carry the message to another alcoholic. And down the road we go, right? That's how we've been doing this for 89 years. And I am so grateful for a conversation that happened at a kitchen table a really, really long time ago, many decades ago, because we are all sitting here right now. Thanks to that. And, I was reflecting on this the other day. We carry the message of Alcoholics Anonymous wherever we go, right? We carry the message wherever we go. And I love this concept of if necessary, we use words. That means that we get to be a walking example of this program in all places that we go, on the road, in our homes, at work, not just in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And, some of us are given the opportunity to carry this message at home. And I grew up in a home with a mom that she's been sober for over 38 years. When my grandmother passed away, her mother died she passed away with 1 month shy of 30 years sober. So I grew up in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, you guys. I grew up in meeting halls, holding hands with strangers, saying the Serenity Prayer, right? I grew up going to meetings. And I did have some experience with what it was like to grow up in a home where there was active alcoholism. And one of the things that I'll tell you is that, before my mom got sober, part of her journey, part of her quest to heal herself, to fix whatever that spiritual malady was, the manifestation of the spiritual malady, is she explored a lot of different walks of faith, a lot of different spiritual practices. And my family of origin is diverse, very diverse when it comes to different concepts of higher power and spirituality. I have an aunt who's a Hare Krishna. I have cousins that were Baptists. I had my mom that was dipping her toe in whatever it was at the time. So I had a lot of different opportunities to learn a lot about, spiritual paths. And that always stands out to me because it was a benefit in some ways by the time I got back here to you guys in 2021. Another thing, I have this recollection that when I was growing up, even when I was in my teens, I had this experience where I always felt I was grasping for something. I remember when I was 13 or 14, I was babysitting in, the Latter-day Saints, the Mormons from the Church of Latter-day Saints. They came knocking on the door and asked if I would be willing to invite them into my home for 8 weeks to share the knowledge of their book with me. And without pause, without hesitation, I was like, yeah. Yeah, would you come? Would you come to my house every Tuesday night at 6 p.m. and we'll read this book together? I mean, the truth is, after I think about three weeks, I kindly passed them a note and said, thank you so much, but no, thank you, I'm good. But I look back at that, and even at a young age, I had this thirst, this quest, this thirst for spiritual knowledge, right? Is what I was looking for, and I didn't understand why. I didn't understand why, but that curiosity, that inquisition around faith, around something greater than me, around some kind of guiding force was always there. And I mentioned I had a previous life in recovery, and I came into the rooms back in 2008, and I stayed with you guys and had my own experience, not the one that was based on my mom getting sober, but my own experience in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I stayed with you guys for about 3.5 years. And after that 3.5 years, the chatter in my head, the voice of my disease. See, my alcoholism talks to me in my own voice, right? And so sometimes it's hard for me to determine what's true and what's false, what's me, what's reason, what's logic, what's divine guidance, right? Like, God wants me to drink. I'm sure I told myself that lie at some point too, right? Because I can't necessarily differentiate the true from the false when I'm in that state. And so I made a decision because I started hearing this voice, and the voice was saying things like, it's been 3.5 years since you had a drink or a drug. Things weren't really that bad when you came into the rooms. You really came in with a partner, and that relationship has dissolved. And I bet you're not even an alcoholic. And I was like, I bet you're right. And so I walked away. And I was without a solution. I was without a program. I was out without all of you. And the relationship that I had with that God of my understanding was strictly transactional for 9 years. And 9 years is a really long time for an alcoholic to be without a solution, to be without a faith-based, a faithful relationship with their higher power, to be stuck in the chaos of their own head, their own mind, all those thoughts, and no negotiator between, right? What's real and what's false? Where am I supposed to go? 9 years is a really long time for an alcoholic to be in that state, to be actively drinking and not die. And I don't say that to be grim and to be dark. I say that because truly that is the reality of this disease. I say it all the time, my alcoholism wants me dead, but it will settle for me drunk. My alcoholism will use me in its fight against me, and I will willingly comply. And I will take hostages, and I will recruit soldiers, and we will march together towards the gates of insanity or death. Let's go. Who wants in on this adventure? And see, when it comes to my alcoholism, without a God of my understanding that I'm doing business with, I have no power, I have no choice, I have no control. if I put any alcohol whatsoever into my body. See, once I start, I cannot stop. And the problem is that I can't stop starting, right? I'm without defense against that first drink. And so, here it is. It's early 2021. I now have a daughter who's 10 years old at the time. I've been dragging her through my alcoholism for the preceding 9 years. And I will tell you this, and that's that nobody paid a greater price for my alcoholism than that little girl. She got to experience the horror and the terror of alcoholism without ever having taken a drink. But I can tell you today, I'm so grateful that she has a God. She has a God of her understanding. She has a God that is walking with her on her path. She's a God that has kept her safe throughout my chaos. I'm really grateful for that. So by the time I found my way back into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous in 2021, the truth is that I didn't come to it sober. I didn't see something in you guys that I had to have. I did not hit this bottom where I was just like, I don't know what to do. I'm going to go back to AA. I really just came in here to escape some consequences. And I figured once something more salacious came along for my family to focus on, I don't know what that was going to be. It was pretty bad. I don't know what they were possibly going to be able to find that was going to distract them from this chaos that was my life. But I was convinced it was going to happen. My plan was to sneak out the back door and try and continue to control and enjoy my alcoholism, because that's how this abnormal drinker thinks. Someday, some way, I will figure it out. And if you would have asked me by the time I showed up in the rooms in 2021, I would have told you that I was really close to figuring it out. I almost had it down. That's the liar in my head, I have this voice in my head that always tells me it's going to be different. It tells me I'm going to figure it out. It tells me that I'm not going to do all these hellacious things that I've been doing. I'm not going to be a chaos creator. And I believe the lie every single time. And so long story short, I come back into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I come in through Zoom. I come in with my camera off, and I never introduce myself to any of you. I'm just here to watch. I'm just here to see what's going on. And I'll tell you what, the first couple weeks that I was here, I was in here picking you guys apart, taking your inventory, finding the differences, not the similarities, telling myself why I did not belong here. Why I did not belong here. Well, you guys had just given up. You guys could have figured out this magic solution too, right? You might have just given up too long. Who knows? But anyway, little by slowly, something started to happen. I was showing up in these meetings, and I was just listening, and I never introduced myself, and I never turned on my camera. And after showing up at this one particular meeting again and again and again, I heard one of you say, "Hey, look, DC is back." I've never introduced myself. I've never turned on my camera. And so now I'm scanning the squares, looking for the other DC, because surely it cannot be me. And a few days later, I got up some courage, and I turned on my camera. And I kid you not, within 30 seconds of me turning on my camera, I heard one of you say, "DC, it's so good to see you. Could you read how it works for us today?" And I'm like, whoa, right? I'm completely caught off guard. The moment I turn my camera on, you guys extend this hand of this opportunity of service for me. And I say yes. It's been a while, but I've read how it works, right? I kind of remember how, and I've been listening to you guys for the last couple weeks. And the truth is that my mom has now put a big book in my house. And so I've got one. I have no excuses. And I say yes. And I am shocked. I'm shocked that you guys saw me. Having never introduced myself, having just turned on my camera for 30 seconds for the first time. But you guys saw that I kept coming back, and you knew that must have counted for something. And so you guys pulled me into the fold. You guys pulled me in. When I was, felt like I was, 1 foot in and 1 foot out, and not really here to stay, and not really wanting what you guys had. And that simple gesture of service, it changed something for me. It changed this level of willingness for me. I can't explain it. And I kept showing up in that meeting. And there was this woman in that meeting. And, she got my phone number. which I did not come to make friends. I did not come to get a sponsor. I did not come to work any steps. And please don't tell me you love me. Like, that is the worst thing that can happen in this experience. Like, stay far away. But, this woman, she got my phone number, and I remember she would call me and send her to voicemail, and she'd text me, and I'd turn my phone number and think, no, not today. And I just push it away. And, in the meantime, this thing was happening where I was listening to your stories. And when you guys would face adversity, like, I would never let you know it, but like after that meeting, I would think about you guys. I would take your adversity, your pain, whatever you were going through, and I would carry it with me in my heart, and I would say prayers for you guys. And I'd also see you guys have really amazing things happen in your life. You had your first grandchild. You got a promotion at work. You racked up 30 days of sobriety. Whatever it was, you got a puppy. And although you would have known it judging, you would have never known it judging by my face. I took a part of you guys with my heart every time I walked away from that meeting. And I was like little victory skips right throughout my day. Like, heck yeah. John got 34 days. Look at that. But I'd never let you guys know it. But I started to fall in love with each and every one of you. And so finally one day that Diane was relentless. She got my number and she was relentless. She kept calling. She kept texting. And she got me on the phone one day and she asked me something. She said, DC, what are your reservations? What are your hesitations? Why won't you just come all the way in and sit all the way down with us? And I opened my mouth, and the first honest thing that I'd said in a really long time is what I said. I said, I don't think that Alcoholics Anonymous can work for me. I've tried it before. And she said, can you just believe that I believe you can do this? She asked me to stay in the room, stay in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, just keep putting one foot in front of the other based on her belief, based on her faith. And I didn't have any on my own. And so I stayed for one more day. And that woman, she took me through the 12 steps. She ended up becoming my sponsor. So here I am in a program that I didn't want to come to. I've got a sponsor that I swore I wasn't going to get. And now I'm reading a book that I wasn't going to read, taking steps that I swore I was not going to take. And we get to step one, and here's the thing, like, I need to understand what's wrong with me. And so she breaks down the threefold disease of alcoholism so beautifully. And she explains to me that the flip side of that threefold disease of the physical allergy, the mental obsession, the spiritual malady, all these things that I very clearly struggle with and identify with. In Alcoholics Anonymous, herein lies a solution. And that is represented by the unity at the service and the recovery, all three sides of the triangle. And she used to add one more little bit: unity, service, and recovery with God in the middle. When I first got here, and Diane and I first started going through the book and looking through those pages and reading them line by line and page by page, we're doing this, and they're starting to do all these little mentions of God. And here's the thing, you guys, I don't have a problem with God. Like I said, I've been exposed to all these different walks and paths and different things. And I've built this like Mr. Potato Head version of God over the years, right? Like, we'll take an ear from the Buddhists, maybe we'll borrow the nose from the Christians. How about a little Hare Krishna on the feet? Like, right, I kind of came in with this like custom tailor-made Mr. Potato Head version of God. And so I didn't struggle with that. And so we get through my first step, because I can admit that I am powerless. I am absolutely powerless, you guys. And I can admit that my life is unmanageable. At this point, my daughter has been taken away from me. I don't know how it's just the chaos, right? The chaos that is alcoholism. That engulfs so many of us. I had my page 8 experience that Bill described so beautifully in his story. The quicksand stretched all around us, right? Alcohol was my master. And we get to step 2. And I read the step. Came to believe. Okay, came to believe, right? So now step 3, right? We move to step 3. All the words that followed the step and came to believe on the page, just like they dissolved, they fell off the page. And I didn't understand why, because I was stuck at this part. I was stuck in this part with my step 2 where I'm like, I have a belief, so now we move on. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And I think about that, and And it's no wonder I had a hard time embracing that, because here's the truth. What does sanity look like? I've been living in this chaotic alcoholic lifestyle, so beautifully depicted by the bedevilments on page 52 of our book. I am useless. I am depressed. I am like all the things, right? That is normal to me. That is normal to me, that state of existence, because it has been my day in and my day out for so long. Like the good days, the days when I can like go out and have a good time and it's fun and it's light and it's clinking, like those days are gone. Insanity has become my norm. So you want me to believe that there's a power greater than me, a God that I cannot see, I cannot touch, I cannot explain. I talk to regularly, but it's usually pretty transactional. If you get me out of this, I promise I'll straighten up and I'll fly right. And I never mean any of that, right? It's just like this Hail Mary, this foxhole prayer that I say to give me some semblance of relief. And you want me to believe in this, that I can be restored to a state of existence that is completely foreign to me. And then I say, okay. But I keep going back to that point with Diane, where I told her I didn't believe that Alcoholics Anonymous could work for me. And see, here's the thing, you guys, I knew that Alcoholics Anonymous worked. I saw it working for you guys. I saw you guys were the miraculous demonstrations of like, you guys had been restored to something that I couldn't identify with. I knew it was possible for you. I knew it was possible for my mom, who at that point had been sober for 35 years. I knew it had been possible for all those decades prior for my grandmother. I'd watched both of these women. They came in the rooms the first time, they sat all the way down, they came all the way in, they got in the book, they started working with others, they got into service. And that is what my mom is still doing 38 years later. That is what my grandmother did until the day she passed away. I knew that it worked. But those 9 years that I was out there, they wasn't 9 years of continuous drinking, you guys. There were a lot of failed attempts to get sober again. I'd come in, I'd rack up a little time, and I'd go back out. I listened to a lot of audiobooks, right? I really thought that if I just found like the right book on how to get sober without Alcoholics Anonymous, if it was read by the right narrator, that was going to be the ticket. That was what was going to get. I just hadn't found the right narrator yet, right? And so I knew that it worked. I just didn't think it could work for a drunk like me. And here's the thing, we kept on going. We kept on going. We kept going through the steps, and we read We Agnostics. And to be honest with you, I had a much powerful experience around, I continue to have a much more powerful experience around step 2 and 3. And 6 and 7. A lot of them is the truth, right? So we stay in it and we continue to have these amazing evolutionary experiences around the steps. But I had a much more profound experience around steps 2 and 3, to be honest with you, probably right around the time I was turning 3 years sober. But that first time around here, we moved from step 2 to step 3, and we said the step 3 prayer, and Diane says to me, okay, I'm going to leave you right here and I'll check in with you tomorrow, okay? And I go, okay. And we've had this wonderful, beautiful experience. We've said the step 3 prayer. And the next day she calls me and she goes, how do you feel? And I go, I felt just like I felt yesterday. Right? And because here I am, I woke up the next morning convinced that God was going to be sitting on my couch with a cup of coffee in hand. There was going to be like a laser light show in my living room, a parade going down the street, like DC's taking step 3, right? She's turned her will and her life over to the care of God. I really expected that it was going to be this big upheaval, right? And I remember feeling a little disappointed, but more than anything, I thought, like, did I do it wrong? Did I do it wrong? Did I not have enough faith? Like, was the cadence of my prayer, was the tone of my voice, like, what did I do? And my brain, which likes to pick apart everything, right? My alcoholism is like, see, you can't even do the second and third step, right? But here's the thing, and this is what I've learned in retrospect. Like, God knew that prior to my life getting sober, my life was like high highs and low lows, these huge upheavals and these really devastating bottom places, right? And God was like, yo. My God says yo sometimes. we have a very casual language between God and I. Sometimes there's a little bit of profanity. There's a lot of like yos. It's very casual. We keep it casual. That's the God of my understanding. That's what I needed, right? I needed a God. There wasn't going to be these formal, these thys and thous and on my knee. Don't get me wrong. Like when I get out of bed in the morning, I do hit my knees because it helps me focus, right? That is how I start my morning every single morning. Focus up, Debbie. Let's talk, right? But my relationship with my higher power is very casual. We have this very conversational, and we talk all day long is the absolute truth. All day long. I'm in constant conversation. Like sometimes I think I'm talking to my pets, right? I think I'm like, but I'm not. Because even if you were to take the cats and the dog out of the house, I'd still be having those conversations. I'm constantly talking to God. Constantly talking to God. And, like I don't know if I mentioned this or not, but like when I first came in, I just wanted to get a little bit of distance between myself and the last drink. And I didn't understand what God had to do with any of that. And now here we are, a few years into this journey, and I don't think about drinking. That doesn't mean that my thinking doesn't bait me. That doesn't mean that I don't get trapped in that worry, that remorse, like all the things that I do, that I get to experience on a daily basis. Get to. Notice I said I get to experience. I get to experience fear. I get to experience dishonesty. I get to experience resentment. I get to experience all these things because when I face adversity, when I fall short, when I lean into my humanness, I'm given an opportunity to, one, grow closer to God, two, to grow, to reflect. And so I don't think about drinking anymore. And when I look back in the rearview mirror of my life, because that's the thing, right? Life is lived forward and experienced backwards. I don't know what's going on as I move forward, but when I look over my shoulder, when I look in that rearview mirror, I can see where God's fingerprints are all over every single part of my life, every single nook and cranny, every single turn, every conversation, every gift, every blessing, and they're all gifts and they're all blessings. See, so the relationship that started in step two, when I thought maybe, just maybe, okay, I'll stay here based on Diane's belief. Maybe, just maybe, this thing can work for me too. I didn't think that it was very likely, but I was willing to say maybe, and that's all it took. I was able to believe that something greater than me, because I didn't struggle with the belief. The power in step two doesn't come from the belief. We don't care what you believe, how much you believe, how little believe, how you pray, how you practice. The power in step two comes from the surrender. I knew when I heard somebody say that when I was new in this journey that was my step two. The power in step two doesn't come from the belief. The power in step two comes from the surrender. I just had to be willing to say maybe something else. Maybe a miracle is possible. Maybe I can have some of what they have. And then we moved on to step three, and God was like, yo, we're going to have a slow reveal, is what I like to call it, right? I have a God of my understanding that continues to grow and evolve with me as I grow and revolve in this process of recovery, in this day-to-day life, in all my successes and all my failures, in every moment that I get to walk with another alcoholic on their journey. Like, somebody trusts me. Somebody actually believes in me. Somebody wants to partner with me. Somebody trusts me enough when they come in these rooms at their most broken, hopeless state. That look in their eyes, that hopelessness, the horror, the desperation. And I see it and I recognize it in a way that only another alcoholic can see it and recognize it. And then we get to walk through their steps together. I get to be a part of their journey. One alcoholic carrying the message to another alcoholic so they can carry the message to another alcoholic. Wow. That's really incredible. My absolute favorite thing took me a while for it to settle in. And many of you know, I will call her our friend Donna J, right? And she said something really profound, and I'm sure she said it many times before, but I probably heard it for the first time about a year ago. She said, faith is the result of the results. Isn't that the truth? right? We start to do these things blindly. We trust in another alcoholic to take us through this process. We start praying to a God that we may or may not believe in. We just keep putting one foot in front of the other. We just keep taking contrary action, doing the things we don't want to do when we don't want to do them, and hope that it's going to lead us somewhere. And then, like I said, I look back in the rearview mirror and I see God's fingerprints all over it, all over every single nook and cranny, over every single turn, every single twist. That's where God shows up. Everywhere. But I can't always see it when I'm in it. You know, my dear friend Andy, who I love so much, you know, he says all the time, you know, God doesn't waste pain. And I remember hearing that. And that's something that I've got a couple sponsees and they're really going through it. And see, I get to pull from your guys' wisdom, your guys' experience. I get to steal the words that you probably stole from somebody else, who they probably stole from somebody else, because that's how we do things in Alcoholics Anonymous, right? We're just recycling these beautiful words of experience and wisdom. And then, you know, and then we spit them out. And I try and always give credit. I don't claim that they are my own. But man, what a gift that is, to be able to like take something like, hey, I heard that. That's really cool. I'm going to pass it on. That faith quote that I get to like, it repeats from me, from Donna J, right? Andy telling me that God doesn't waste pain. All these, that stranger, I cannot tell you her name, who gave me that little nugget about step 2, all these little guiding forces all throughout the day. And guess what I know? God puts people in my path that carry a message. Each and every single one of you. These are all divinely inspired little tidbits, little guiding quips, right? All these little things that we say to help each other. God uses us here on earth to communicate with one another, right? Because sometimes I can't hear. I'm like, yo, I can't hear you. I'm praying, I'm begging, I'm seeking, and I'm asking. But I'm so convoluted. I'm so crazy. I'm so stuck up my own spin and my own still like stirred that I cannot hear. I'm blocked off from the power. God's always talking to me, but am I always willing to listen? So sometimes like, all right, you know what? You're not willing to, JC, can you go talk to her? And God gives JC the words that I need to hear, right? He puts JC in my path to carry a message that is divinely inspired that comes to me. You know, one of the things that I mentioned, you know, earlier was that, you know, my daughter turns 14 at the end of this month. She turns 14 at the end of this month, and like I said, you know, I really put her through the ringer. You know, she was my caretaker. She was my mother at my darkest moments. You know, she was one of the soldiers that I recruited. She told lies for me. She did anything she could to protect her mother because I am her favorite person on the planet, even though the life that she was living was incredibly unsafe and chaotic and unpredictable, because she lived with an alcoholic mother. And here's the thing, when I came in, I first blamed my mother. I blamed my mother for being an alcoholic. If she hadn't been an alcoholic, right? If she hadn't screamed and yelled so much, if she had said, I love you more, like it doesn't, like I blame that woman for everything. And luckily, like, and here's the thing, despite all that, I was always like, I will never do that to my daughter. I will never put my daughter through the things that my mother put me through, right? All that victimhood and martyrdom that we love to wear like a comfortable coat. At least I do. You know, I was able to do the work. I was able to take step 4. I was able to take step 5, and I was able to find forgiveness for that woman. I was able to find forgiveness for that woman, my mother. I was able to find forgiveness for the other woman, and that was myself. Because I was not a great mom. I was not a great mom by any means. And so I've got to this place where I found forgiveness for my mom. I found forgiveness for myself, and I'm practicing these principles in all my affairs. And sometimes having a teenager is hard, you guys. It is hard. A teenage girl, she's got a lot going on. And don't get me wrong, she is a good kid. She's a really good kid. I did not get the kid I deserve, at least not yet. Thank goodness for that. I think he was like, she can't handle any more than this. Not right now. And, since I got sober, over the past few years, I will tell you that little girl of mine, like my life, it hasn't been all, butterflies and rainbows, but, my life is manageable. I have a spiritual toolkit. I have a fellowship that I get to lean in. I have people that I can call when I don't know what to do. And here's the thing. I truly believe that anything we go through in sobriety is placing us in a position to be useful and helpful to another person at some point. And so when I'm going through something, I know and I have faith today that there is somebody in my life, in my fellowship, who's had a similar experience that I can reach out to that can help walk me through whatever I've got going on. So I've got this little girl and she's almost 14. And since I got sober, she's faced a lot of adversity, you guys. And I've been talking about this a lot lately because it really, really struck me that like in the past 3 years, she's faced a lot of things, that this child has a lot of anxiety. And the book talks about like 10 or 20 years of living with a drunk is going to make people a little neurotic, right? And this little girl is no exception, right? She carries a lot of anxiety and it manifests in some ways that around, it doesn't matter, but I've seen her anxiety manifest in some ways that have affected her mental health. 2 years ago, her dad got diagnosed with colon cancer. He and I are divorced and I was able to show it for both of them, but I can't imagine how scary that is. Because like at 47 years old, I'm watching my mom who's, almost 71, and I'm starting to watch all these like regular part of aging things, like these regular part of aging health ailments grows up. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do if something happens to her? And I can't imagine being 12 years old and watching your dad walk through cancer. And he went through treatment and he survived, but that had to be such a terrible, scary time for her. And then a couple months ago, another little girl, one of her schoolmates, another 13-year-old girl decided to take her life. And it was incredibly confusing and scary and overwhelming for my daughter. And how do you navigate that as a 13-year-old girl? How do you make sense of that? And at no point during any of these points of adversity that she has faced, during any of the challenges that she has faced, have I ever been like, oh my gosh, this is happening to me. What do I do? How do I show up for this kid? Because I have a relationship with a God of my understanding. Because I know that she has a relationship with a God of her understanding. I know that God is walking both of us through everything together, hand in hand, even when it feels confusing and scary. Just within the last couple of weeks, like we had a new manifestation of her anxiety that requires some next level mental health stuff. Not anything completely overwhelming, not anything that we can't handle. And the truth is that God will never give us more than we can handle. God always gives us what he can handle, right? God will only give me as much to make me reach for more God. How cool is that? I have a solution today that doesn't live at the bottom of a bottle or a baggie. I have a solution today that doesn't involve, me being the victim or the martyr or having to blame other people. So in all those years where I created this unsafe environment, like, yes, some of the manifestation of this anxiety for this little girl are certainly something that I contributed to. Some of it's just life. Some of it's being a teenager. It's not all me, don't get me wrong, but I do take accountability and responsibility for my part in it. But here's the thing. For every moment that I was unable to show up for her, like God has given me an opportunity to show up for her. I get to show up for her. I get to walk her through this stuff. I get to let her sleep in my bed when she's struggling and just pet her head and hold her and tell her I love her until she feels okay. I get to give her opportunities to talk about her feelings or just to sit in silence, whatever it is that she needs. And I don't struggle. That doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt and it's not hard, but I don't struggle. Like when I don't know what to do, and like step 11 tells us in thinking about our day, we may face indecision, right? Here we ask for an attitude of thought and inspiration or a decision. We're often surprised that right answers come. If I can stay in steps 10, 11, and 12, if I can keep just stay close, keep walking this path with God, right? God cannot be explained. He can only be experienced. I get to have a new experience with God every single day. The clock's winding down and when I first got sober, I had a home group, but I also found myself going to a meeting every single day called the Bronx Big Book Study. And the beginning of that meeting, they start off every single meeting with the set-aside prayer. And I remember hearing it for the first time, not them reading it the first time, but I remember hearing it for the first time. God, please help me set aside everything I think I know including today. Everything I think I know about you, about the 12 steps, about my disease, so that I can have an open mind and a new experience. That's all I needed to find that willingness attached to step 2. To be able to say, maybe, just maybe this thing can work for me too. Maybe, just maybe this God that I believe in and I'm still getting to know. Like we're really still getting to know each other. But hey, I'm going to have a little bit of faith in this thing. If I can just set aside everything I think I know, every experience I've had up until this moment, to allow myself to have a new experience, to be able to see the truth. Not my truth, not the version of the truth, not the version of the truth that you tell me is true, the truth. Truth from the divine source. I get to have an open mind and a new experience every single day. And I don't know. This life, it's a beautiful thing, you guys. It's a life I never knew I wanted. You guys are the family that I never knew I needed. I'm so grateful. I hate saying I'm grateful because I'm like, everybody says they're grateful, but it's not that everybody says they're grateful. It doesn't feel like a big enough word. It doesn't feel like a big enough word to encompass how I feel, you guys, to be gifted this life that I've been gifted, to be given another chance, to be able to be here with all of you guys at 5:45 in the morning. That moon's still out there somewhere. The sun still is not up, and there's no place I'd rather be than right here with all of you. Talking about God, talking about Alcoholics Anonymous, talking about the fellowship. You know that this is the last thing I'm going to say. This doesn't. The foundation stone of freedom from fear is faith, a faith that despite all worldly appearances to the contrary, causes me to believe that I live in a universe that makes sense. Today I live in a universe that makes sense. And you guys are all there with me. Thank you so much for letting me share. That's all I've got.